You'd think by now we've mastered construction. Skyscrapers, bridges, megadams, all proof that we can bend nature to our will. But sometimes, nature pushes back. What happens when humans decide to build in places where the Earth itself says, no, don't do that? Today, we're counting down 15 of the most impossible structures on Earth, buildings and cities that shouldn't exist but somehow do. This video is sponsored by the Fire Digital, your all-in-one marketing solution. From branding and logo design to powerful websites, getting your site found on Google with SEO, and even video editing, they provide everything you need to grow your business online. Visit www.thefiredigital.com. The link's in the description. Number 15. The Hanging Monasteries of Meteora, Greece. In central Greece, enormous stone pillars rise hundreds of feet above the valley floor. Perched on top of them are centuries-old buildings that seem to float in the sky. From below, they look impossible, walls and rooftops clinging to sheer vertical cliffs with no flat ground in sight. What makes them extraordinary is how they were built. With no cranes, helicopters, or modern machinery, every stone, beam, and tile had to be hauled up by hand. The first builders scaled the cliffs with rope ladders and baskets, raising materials hundreds of feet into the air with little more than muscle and nerve. At its peak, more than 20 structures stood on these towers, each one self-sufficient and cut off from the valley below. Today, they stand not just as architectural landmarks, but as proof of what determination and ingenuity can achieve in places where construction should have been impossible. Number 14. La Rinconada, Peru. At nearly 17,000 feet above sea level in the Peruvian Andes sits La Rinconada, the highest permanent settlement on Earth. Oxygen is scarce, temperatures rarely rise above freezing, and even daily tasks feel punishing in the thin air. Despite these conditions, more than 30,000 people live here. The reason is gold. A nearby mine operates under a system where workers spend 30 days unpaid, and on the 31st day, they can take home as much or as they can carry. For many, it's a lottery worth the risk, even if most find nothing. The result is a sprawling, makeshift city with limited water, no formal sewage system, and only patchy electricity. Yet families raise children here, markets operate, and life carries on. La Rinconada is a vivid example of how far people will go to survive, and even thrive, in an environment that resists human life at every turn. Number 13. The Katskhi Pillar, Georgia. In western Georgia, a solitary limestone column rises 130 feet from the valley floor. Its peak is barely wider than a small apartment, yet somehow structures were built right on top of it. For centuries, the rock was considered inaccessible, but daring builders proved otherwise. Supplies were hoisted up with ropes, ladders were bolted into the stone, and a small cluster of rooms was established at the summit. Life at the top meant complete isolation, with everything needed for survival delivered from below. After being abandoned for generations, the site was carefully restored in the late 20th century using climbers and engineers. Today, visitors travel from all over the world to see it, though access to the top remains limited. The Katskhi Pillar is a striking example of human persistence, transforming a narrow spike of stone into a functioning outpost. Number 12. The Ice Hotel, Sweden. In northern Sweden, just above the Arctic Circle, builders create a hotel out of nothing but snow and ice. Each winter, more than 5,000 tons of frozen river ice and 30,000 tons of compacted snow are carved into elaborate rooms, corridors, and even an ice bar. By spring, the entire structure melts back into the river. The process is as much art as engineering. Designers and sculptors from around the world are invited each year to create themed suites. Walls become frozen murals, chandeliers sparkle with crystal clear ice, and furniture is carved straight from solid blocks. No 2 years are ever the same. Guests sleep on reindeer hides and insulated sleeping bags at around -5 degrees Celsius. Bathrooms and heated areas are in separate buildings. It's more expedition than luxury, but for those who make the trip, it's a chance to spend a night inside a temporary masterpiece that exists only because builders dared to make architecture out of ice. Number 11. The Trollstigen Visitor Center, Norway. High in Norway's western mountains, a structure juts out over sheer cliffs, blending almost seamlessly with the rugged landscape. This is the Trollstigen Visitor Center, built at the top of one of the country's most dramatic mountain roads. The building was designed to merge with its surroundings. Its sharp concrete edges echo the jagged cliffs, while weathered steel blends with the rust-colored rock. Vast glass walls reflect the fjords below, making the center look like an extension of the terrain itself. The highlight is a cantilevered walkway that extends out over empty air. From it, visitors look straight down onto twisting mountain roads and roaring waterfalls. When fog rolls in or snow buries the ground, the building vanishes into the landscape, a reminder that architecture here doesn't fight nature, it adapts to it. Number 10. The Taktsang Upper Reservoir, Missouri, USA. On top of a mountain in Missouri sits something few people would expect, a billion-gallon artificial lake. Known as the Taktsang Upper Reservoir, it was designed as part of a hydroelectric project in the 1960s, essentially a giant battery. Water is pumped up the mountain when demand is low, then released down through turbines to generate electricity when needed. Unlike traditional dams that are protected by natural valleys or cliffs, this reservoir is completely man-made, sitting like a bowl of water on a tabletop. That design made it both groundbreaking and risky, because if the walls failed, nothing would stop the water from crashing down the mountain. In 2005, that nightmare became reality. A faulty sensor caused the reservoir to overfill until the walls gave way. Within minutes, 1.3 billion gallons of water tore through the forest below, flattening everything in its path. Miraculously, no one died. Today, a rebuilt reservoir still crowns the mountain, a silent reminder of both engineering ambition and its potential consequences. Number 9. The Step Pyramid of Djoser, Egypt. Long before the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt attempted something no civilization had ever tried, building a massive structure out of cut stone. The result was the Step Pyramid of Djoser, constructed over 4,600 years ago at Saqqara. Before this, royal tombs were low mud brick structures. But Djoser's architect Imhotep stacked them in stages, creating a 6-tiered pyramid that soared higher than anything the ancient world had seen. More than 300,000 cubic meters of stone were moved by hand to build it, with no wheels, no iron tools, and no cranes. Over thousands of years, earthquakes and erosion nearly destroyed it. By the early 2000s, parts of the ceiling sagged dangerously, and engineers warned it could collapse. A massive restoration project stabilized the structure, reinforcing its chambers and repairing its casing. Today it still stands, the earliest colossal stone building in history, and the blueprint for all pyramids that came after. Number 8. The Maeklong Railway Market, Thailand. In the town of Samut Songkhram, Thailand, daily life plays out directly on a set of active train tracks. The Maeklong Railway Market is packed with stalls selling fruit, vegetables, and seafood until a horn sounds in the distance. At that moment, a strange routine begins. Vendors quickly roll back carts, fold up awnings, and slide their produce trays just inches away from the steel rails. A full-size train rumbles through at walking speed, brushing past baskets of food. Then, just as quickly, the market reforms and business continues as if nothing happened. The system is so well practiced that accidents are virtually non-existent. Stalls are built with retractable umbrellas, and produce is displayed low to the ground so the train can pass over it. What should be chaos has become choreography, a remarkable example of humans adapting to their environment instead of moving away from it. Number 7. Mont-Saint-Michel, France. Off the coast of Normandy, a rocky island rises abruptly from tidal flats. On its summit stands Mont-Saint-Michel, a fortified settlement built layer by layer over centuries until it resembled a stone mountain of its own. Construction here was almost impossible. At high tide, the island is surrounded by the sea, cutting it off from mainland. Supplies had to be hauled across shifting sands and timed with the moon. Builders stacked walls, halls, and towers vertically, turning the narrow peak into a multi-level fortress town. For centuries, its survival depended entirely on the tides. Food was grown in rooftop gardens, waste was carefully disposed of, and access was dictated by water levels. Today, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most visited landmarks in France. Mont-Saint-Michel is proof that even the ocean can't keep people from building in the most unlikely of places. Number 6. Paro Taktsang Monastery, Bhutan. On a sheer cliff nearly 3,000 feet above Bhutan's Paro Valley sits a complex of buildings that appear to defy gravity. Known as the Tiger's Nest, the structures seem to hover against a vertical granite wall balanced on ledges so narrow they look impossible to build on. Every stone, and beam had to be carried up steep trails on foot. Even today, there is no road access. Visitors must hike for hours through forests and switchbacks before reaching the site. The effort mirrors the construction itself, demanding, dangerous, and entirely shaped by the mountain. In 1998, much of the complex was destroyed by fire, but it was painstakingly rebuilt stone by stone. Today, it still clings to the cliff face, weathering storms and earthquakes. The Tiger's Nest is less a building and more a statement that even the most unforgiving landscapes can be transformed into places where people not only survive, but create lasting marvels. Number 5. Halley 6 Antarctic Research Station. On the frozen edge of Antarctica stands a building unlike any other on Earth. Bright blue and orange modules rest on hydraulic legs, able to rise above snowdrifts and even walk across the ice. This is Halley 6, the world's first fully relocatable polar research station. Most research bases sit on solid rock, but Halley rests on the Brunt Ice Shelf, a floating slab that moves about 400 meters a year. The challenge? The ice constantly cracks and drifts toward the ocean, threatening to carry the base away. To survive, Halley was designed to be modular. Each section can be detached, towed by tractors, and reassembled inland. Life here is extreme. For 9 months of the year, the base is cut off from the world. Winter temperatures plunge below -60 degrees Celsius, winds reach hurricane force, and the sun disappears for 105 days straight. Yet scientists continue their work, proving that even in one of the harshest environments on the planet, engineering can adapt and endure. Number 4. The Sunken Church of Potosí, Venezuela. In the Andes of Venezuela lies a ghostly structure that sometimes stands tall and sometimes vanishes beneath the waves. The colonial Church of Potosí was submerged in the 1980s when a valley was flooded to create a hydroelectric reservoir. For decades, only its steeple poked through the water. But during droughts, something extraordinary happens. The waters drop and the entire stone facade rises back into view. Locals and tourists gather to watch as the lost town briefly resurfaces, a haunting reminder of the village that once thrived here. When the rains return, the church sinks again beneath the lake. Repeatedly exposed to both water and air, the building shouldn't still be standing, yet it endures. Half monument, half ruin, the Church of Potosí is a rare example of architecture that lives on nature's terms, surfacing and disappearing, as if breathing with the land around it. Number 3. The Dina River House, Serbia. In the middle of the Dina River in Serbia, balanced on a smooth boulder, sits a tiny wooden house. No bridge, no dock, no path leads to it, just a cabin defiantly clinging to a rock surrounded by rushing water. It began in 1968 when a group of local teenagers decided they needed a place to rest while swimming. They ferried planks across the river in kayaks and piece by piece built a hut on the rock. Over the decades, floods and storms destroyed it several times, but each time locals rebuilt it stronger. The house has since become an international curiosity. Photographs of it have appeared in magazines worldwide, drawing visitors eager to see how such a fragile-looking structure can survive. Against all logic, the little house has stood firm for more than 50 years, daring the river to wash it away. Number 2. The Cliff Palace of Mesa Verde, USA. In the mesas of southwestern Colorado, entire stone villages were built inside natural alcoves in the cliffs. The largest of these is Cliff Palace, with more than 150 rooms tucked into a sandstone cavity high above the canyon floor. Constructed between 1190 and 1260 CE, the settlement made ingenious use of its environment. The alcove shielded inhabitants from harsh sun and cold winters, while its elevated position provided safety and captured precious light. Access was limited to footpaths and handholds carved into the rock, making it both defensible and sustainable. Today, Cliff Palace is the centerpiece of Mesa Verde National Park. Visitors can see the remains of towers, plazas, and ceremonial rooms, a city in stone, hidden in the cliffs. Built without modern tools or machines, it remains one of the most impressive examples of adapting architecture perfectly to the land. Number 1. The Potala Palace, Tibet. At more than 12,000 feet above sea level, the Potala Palace towers over the city of Lhasa. Rising in layers up the side of Red Hill, it looks more like a mountain of stone than a man-made structure. Building here was a near impossibility. The altitude means less oxygen, freezing winters, and steep, unstable terrain. Yet starting in the 7th century, and expanded in the 1600s, workers hauled massive stones and timber up the slopes by hand. The result was a fortress-like complex with walls over 10 feet thick, designed to withstand earthquakes and time itself. Today, the palace is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, admired not only for its scale but for its defiance of the environment. Balanced on cliffs, towering above the city, it remains one of the most improbable constructions on Earth, a structure in the sky that proves human determination can reach even the highest peaks. So what do all these places have in common? They're proof that when humans decide to build, even the most unforgiving landscapes can be reshaped into something extraordinary. From frozen hotels to mountaintop fortresses, from underwater ruins to houses in the middle of rivers, each one dares nature to say no, and somehow they endure. And that raises the bigger question. Are these structures triumphs of human determination or warnings that we push too far in places we were never meant to be? Hit that like button if you love uncovering the world's wonders, subscribe to Epic Discoveries for more, and tell me in the comments. Which of these impossible structures would you want to see with your own eyes?